Love can't be described. If it is not a shape, it has no form. Love is not an object. Love does not conform. When searching for God, there's no need to look far. He's not in the clouds or some faraway star. Day by day, God walks with me and my burdens. He helps me bear each step I take along the way. My loving Father is always there. Every scar has a story. What will mine tell? What will come of this when I am better, when I am well? When God created you, He knew that He would see, or in heaven you would be. I am a work of art in the Almighty's hands. The intent of His heart, He totally understands. He never promised us a perfect life, but only a perfect love. We seek you in prayer and look for you as you are. Our everlasting Savior, a bright and shining star. Sometimes we are out there, lost, seeking your acceptance. But just know that God has accepted you.
Hello, hi, Sanbonani, igama lami Sthabile Mazubane. Welcome. This is World Gospel Impact Church. It is our youth talk show. We're back for another season. It is so good for you to be watching us from wherever it is that you are coming in from. Be it YouTube, make sure that you subscribe and most definitely that you like this video. If you're watching us from Facebook, also make sure that you click like and share this video with your friends. All right, today we are flipping the script. I'm going to quote a word, firstly, to start us off. It says, honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Today we're flipping the script. We are talking toxic parenting. Yes, you heard me right. We are talking about toxic parents, and I'm looking at you. I'm going to welcome my guests today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to ask you guys very briefly to introduce yourself and then just give us an example of a time where you felt either that you as a parent were being toxic or that your parents were being toxic to you. All right, and I'm going to start on my right. Introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, igama lami nguXoliswa kaMchunu, an example of a time where I was toxic. Can I just use myself as an example? I look at my son, he's only 3 years old, but the way I am too controlling, I find myself toxic, and the decisions sometimes that I make for him, he's too young that I should make such big decisions for him. So I find myself toxic. Anyway.
Right, controlling, making decisions. Lady on the far right.
Hi everyone, my name is Tanya Zungu. I'm also going to use myself as an example. I feel like there is toxic parenting and then there's toxic parents. Because we are all imperfect human beings, we do have times and days where we are toxic, but it doesn't mean that we are toxic parents. So I have quite a few times where I have to stop myself and identify that, okay, no, that wasn't right. And what I like to do is that I make sure that if I've done something, maybe responded to one of my children in a way that I identify as toxic, then I make sure that I call them back and I apologize and I fix the situation right there and then. Because I'm trying to raise kids that don't have to recover from their childhoods. So it starts with me. I know how to identify the toxicity in me, and I make sure that I fix it right there and then.
Yo, talking about parents that apologize. Has your mother ever apologized to you? Or your father? Because certainly, especially in our culture, I don't think.
First of all, I can't speak for myself because I'm not a parent. Secondly, I have experienced toxic parenting, but not directly from my mother. Sometimes, so it gets confusing. But what she would do was she enabled her children. So there was never a point where it was, you are wrong for this, you shouldn't do it again. It was always a thing of, she will discipline indirectly. So uzohambe ekhulume nathi ethi into sibanibana yenza wrong, but she would never go and address her children, which unfortunately she is late. Unfortunately now, dealing with the repercussions of all those decisions is hard because we can't do the same thing because we're not raised the same way.
Whenever, even if you weren't wrong, you were being called out for something that you hadn't done.
Exactly.
All right. Lady on my left.
Sanibona, igama lami uSithokozise Mkhwanazi. Well, my experience, I grew up with my grandparents. So my grandfather was very strict, and I mean very strict. You know, the kind of person to tell you no, or give you a hiding if he sends you somewhere and you come back like 5 minutes late. So Leo trait, it grew up with me as a parent, where I find myself strict to the extreme with my children now, you know, where I shout at them unnecessarily. And sometimes, you know, I give them a little hiding, you know, and then I realize, no, as in, I am being a bit toxic and a bit harsh. And these kids are going to eventually grow up with the same traits that I grew up with, and they're going to become the same people that I am right now. So I have to take a step back and do the hardest, which is calling them and trying to apologize and sitting them down and making them understand, as small as they are, that, listen, you know what, this was wrong of me.
And absolutely, that's something we don't even recognize when these things take place. They're taking place in our subconscious minds. We're becoming these parents that we felt like were just across the line. Okay, so let's look, and I'm going to start with you. Let's look at what do we think as kids pushes our parents? Is there something that we can say pushes our parents to a point where we feel like they're being toxic?
I think, yeah. Especially in the stage of being a teenager. I think that's the one time that we really do test our parents, you know, and now I think lose control a bit because sometimes they don't know how to handle the situation, and the best way for them that they see at that moment is to lash out. You know, and I think we do push them a bit, but you know, having a kid, you know, you realize stages, you know, there's your terrible twos, and then there's the teenage stage, and then, you know, being an adult, and sometimes things are not working out, and, you know, your parents are demanding. So yeah, we do push them, we do.
Mamzung, I'm going to come to you. Are there moments where you look back and you were like, yeah, I was just really pushing things?
Yes, I do have moments where I feel like I just do and say the wrong thing. Like maybe with my 8-year-old, he will ask me a question and I will respond with sarcasm. I think it's uncalled for, you know, and then after the fact, I feel like, okay, I shouldn't have spoken to him like that, because maybe he's not going to take it the way that, you know, he's not going to receive it the way that I meant it. You know, there's just, sometimes sarcasm, they say it's the lowest form of wit and the highest form of intelligence. But it depends on your audience as well. For an 8-year-old, for you to respond in a sarcastic way, I remember a time where I did respond in that way, and I just saw the smile immediately being drained from his face. And I knew that, okay, I had done something wrong. And, you know, it happens sometimes when I'm shouting at them and I'm really frustrated. Sometimes I even hear a voice, where she's like, no, because she says, Guti, I shout too much, and I know that I do, and I try to not shout so much, but
it doesn't happen. All right, Tloli,
I'm a work in progress.
let's bring it to you, Tloli. We talk about, the Bible talks, certainly as Christians, the Bible talks about corporal punishment. And others feel like corporal punishment is really like taking it there with being toxic as a parent. So where do you think as Christians we find or we can strike the balance between no, this is being toxic, and then this is just simply being a parent, as the Bible is telling us.
I'm laughing because Opi, my cousin, most of the time she would shout at me when I just give a hiding to my son. You know, so when it comes to corporal punishment, I'm caught up not wanting to give an answer because I feel guilty. Ukuthi, Ish, this is what I do, you know. I find it wrong in a way, but at the same time, it gives a way enganeni ukuthi ibone ukuthi meke ngathinta la. There's something that I'm gonna get in that.
Spear, do you think corporal punishment is a form of being toxic, or we just simply following the word of God?
To an extent, it is. I say this because it differs. There is corporal punishment and then there's discipline. So we need to strike a balance between the two. Khona abazali abakushayela ukuthi nami ngashawa. And this is how I was raised. And they will glorify the fact that mina nginje ngoba wayengishaya uma. And we never really deal with unjani munje. Yabo. So there's ukuba nje and there's setting the child down. Because iBhayibheli malithi uswazi liyayibuyisa ingane endleleni. Ungashaya phela ingane izibuyele endleleni igcine isiphumile futhi. Yabo. There's a difference between me doing something wrong and my mom locking me in a room shy. And there is me doing something wrong, being told that I did something wrong, knowing that what you did was wrong before, because as ingane ikhula khona izinto ezifunda ngaphandle that are right and wrong, and there are things they learn within the household that are right and wrong. So if it's a first offense for your child to do that one thing that's wrong, fanele azi ukuthi lela ekhaya is wrong, and this is the result yalento oyenzile nokuba wrong kwayo. So we need to strike a balance between corporal punishment le ukuthi nginje ne-discipline.
All right, it is World Gospel Impact Church. Let us know down in the comment section below, do you think as brethren, when we are disciplining our children with us, the Bible says don't spare the rod. When you don't spare the rod, are you being toxic as a parent? And I'm going to bring it to you. Uspe here is talking about discipline. So let's talk about this line. Where then do we draw the line as parents? Uguti, this is just discipline, and then this is being toxic. Where do you draw the line?
I think when it comes to toxic parenting, it's basically convincing yourself that you're doing it out of love when the child does not receive it in a loving way. So once, it doesn't have to come to that point, but almost how are you feeling? Because I know as a mother that if I go, above discipline, that I feel a bit guilty. I do feel guilty, and there's no taking it back because the child has received it. So we need to learn to try now and rectify Lelo Puta, and do it again. That's when no, this is where I'm crossing the line. When afterwards, what, I feel guilty for this. Then what, I've crossed the line. We discipline and being toxic.
Oli, where do you think we draw the line?
We draw the line. I think you are also able ukubona ingane indlela ereacta ngayo after giving discipline. So I think as parents, fanele sikwazi identify, like as she's saying, you should be able to rectify ukuthi after giving discipline, umshaya umntwana noma umhlalisa phansi, mengabe ubona ukuthi she's doing or he's doing differently. And then I think that's where you should draw a line. Ungaveli ukuthi ngaso sonke isikhathi you want to be pushy and always controlling. Because mangabe sikhuluma ngalento le ngiyacabanga manje ukuthi ekhaya, I think, personally, my mother doesn't know where to draw a line. She just, ngaso sonke isikhathi. But this topic teaches me as a parent ukuthi ngikwazi ukubona ukuthi okay ngeke ngize ngimjezise uma for doing this, but mina as a parent raising a 3-year-old, this is how I should draw a line and be able, look, okay, I've given it discipline. Let me wait for the child to, what's and excellencies.
All right, Mam Zungu, they're talking about first giving the discipline and then rectifying it. Do you not think it's a point too late for you to always just be rectifying at the point where you realize, Uguti, no, I actually crossed the line?
I feel like Uspe said, there's discipline and then there's punishment. Let me say corporal punishment. I think corporal punishment should be used as a last resort. And if you have to resort to corporal punishment all the time, then you must know that you failed as a parent. There's somewhere where you just have gone wrong, because you are the one that has to instill the discipline. You must rear your child in a way that they know that this is wrong and this is right. So then you are able to then, when they do something wrong, then you tell them that what you're doing is wrong, and they accept it and they understand it because they know it, right? But they will do wrong because they're kids. And you only get the belt as a last resort. But if you are going to get the belt, if that's the first thing that you're thinking of, then you have gone wrong somewhere in your child rearing, and you are the one that has to take responsibility for that.
Okay, let's move on to this thing of conflict resolution, Spe. How do you think is the best? What do you think is the best way for parents and kids to find a balance in terms of conflict resolution before it gets to being toxic?
Okay. There's a way that my mother disciplines us, which is different from her siblings. My mother's siblings are loud. When they discipline, literally everyone in the house can hear that someone is being disciplined for something. When my mother disciplines us, singame sinking in the kitchen, hey, kungezwa umuntu endlini, yimnaye. Kodwa hey, usuka lapho uyibala zonke izono zakho uthi hey, uyazi ukuthi fanele ngiwashe izitsha kusasa kuze ngilungise lento. I feel like it's important to first identify yourself as a human being, whether as a parent or a child, before we get to trying to understand the next person. Because if everyone resorts to being loud and being expressive and shouting and kicking and whatever, so you need to ask yourself, is this a type of person that I am, or am I defined by how I was raised? And if I'm defined by how I was raised, is this how I want to raise the next generation? Because we lying. Someone has to break the cycle at some point. Right. So if besikhula sithethiswa njalo uthatha ukhishela eminyango kuthiwa abelungu banonothi khona asiyazi leyo nto thina. And you ask yourself, kube kuthiwa sinonothi khona thina ngabe sinjani? Kube kuthiwa ngempela uyasetshenziswa effectively. Ngabe sinjani?
All right, so I'm going to bring it to you. What do you think is the best way for us to resolve conflict?
I think with any relationship, parent-child relationship, it's always advisable to be able to communicate, because without communication, really there's no line going over to the other person, So if you are going to be the one who's always screaming and shouting, akusiyona communication le, uwena okhulumayo ingane ithuli yalalela. And njengosiphe kade esho ukuthi ama siblings amawakhe were always loud. Try not to shame your kids in front of other people. Try not to be loud, because ingane iyaqala iyasaba. Angeke isasaba wena, izosaba wonke umuntu omdala. And as they grow up, bazohluleka, to stand up for themselves, even in a situation where it's required for them to stand up for themselves. So we need to be able to try and communicate, as hard as it is, especially for us, abantu abamnyama, I have to say. There's no, such a thing as, umzali wakho uzokuhlalisa phansi akhulume nawe, I have a one-on-one with you. So I think we really need to break the cycle and try and form a positive and a solid communication system. It starts there.
All right, break the cycle and definitely communicate. We are almost out of time, but this time around, we are fortunate enough to have an audience. So I'm going to throw it over to my audience. Shout out to our audience over here. And I'm just going to take 2 questions before we close it off. Any question from the audience?
Greeting to everyone. I greet the panelists. Kamalam Gumsindisi. Sindisi, I love the Lord. I just want to ask something to the ladies there, because I see there's no, I see who's Peokon, but is the youth there. There's no man that maybe is responsible or is the father. So I just want to know to the ladies, Guti, what can you say to a couple that is sitting down there whenever you see yourself with your partner, maybe arguing about parenting? How do you balance that thing? Because sometimes you find that maybe if the mother is disciplining the child, maybe the father is not good about the way that the mother is going with the parenting thing. So how do you think how to balance? What can you say to a couple that is sitting down listening?
All right, Kole, I'm going to bring this one to you. You have opposing views with the partner. How do you resolve that?
It's not an opposing, but I think to give an answer to question kamsindisi ukuthi ekhaya umuntu obukele as couples as abantu abashadile noma abazali abahlala ndawonye fanele nibe tag team.
Yes.
Ukuze nazi ukuthi iyiphi discipline eninikeza ingane ngoba ngabe omunye ezophuma abheke ngapha omunye aphuma abheke ngapha and then ingane igcina confused bese naye iyakwazi ukunidlala ukuthi okay mangabe mengifuna ukwenza lento I know which side to go to. So I think abantu ekhaya ababukela abazali ukuthi nibe tag team nihlangane nini khona ingeke iziyazi ukuthi mengabe kunje ngiyapi iveli isabe but ikwazi ukuthi ize kunina nobabe ngoba vele izothola into straight. Exactly.
The exact same response. Do we have one more question before we close it off? Yes.
Sanibona igama unofundo. Mina bengithanda ukubuza ukuthi as a young woman osakhula ozoba umzali at some point bengithanda ukubuza uMamZungu ukuthi to be umzali ongeke azabe toxic yiziphi inyathelo mhlawumbe engazithatha
You have
zingabi
to,
nami toxic.
you have to heal. You have to look at your own childhood. You have to identify what toxic traits there were in your childhood from your parents. Even no mamkulu, not just your parents. Even no mamkulu, no mamncane, and extended family. You have to, because they say it takes a village. So I'm sure you weren't raised by just your parental unit. There was also isandla from mamkulu, no mamncane, and whatnot. So you have to look at that and identify all the toxic traits that you grew up with, and you have to heal from it. Because I think that's how toxic parents are born. When you have a child and you haven't healed from your own childhood. And you have to be intentional. You have to decide that you are not going to raise your kids like that.
All right. I'm going to thank you so much. I'm going to say thank you to my panelists. Thank you for informing the conversation and moving it forward. Thank you to you at home for watching us. It is World Gospel Impact Church. I am going to close it off with this verse. Children, it is your Christian duty to obey your children, your parents always, for that is what pleases God. Parents, do not irritate your children, or they will become discouraged. What do you make out of that? Well, that I leave it up to you. My name is Sthabile Mazubane, and we'll see you next time.